Hi everyone, and welcome to my next video tutorial, which is going to be focused on utilizing the AWS CLI. And as a test demonstration, we're going to learn how we can utilize the CLI to create a bucket in Amazon S3, just to give you some experience with the CLI and to understand the process. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to log into your AWS account, and then you want to head on over to the IAM service. So we can type in IAM and click on that. Okay, then you want to go to users on the left hand side here. Then we can say create user. Then you want to give your user a name here. I'm just going to say Arno3, for example. And you can decide if you want to provide that user access to the AWS Management Console. You don't have to, but that's something you can do. But we're just going to then say next. And I want to attach a policy directly. And here I'm going to put in S3. And then if I were to just make this a bit wider under the policy name, you want to look for Amazon S3 full access. And you want to select that option. Then you can scroll down, say next. And you can see here a summary, so the user details, so the username, the permissions that have been assigned, and then you can say create user. All right, great. So you can now see that that user has been created. So now what you can do is click on your user that you created, so you're on S3. And you can go to security credentials. Then you can scroll down to access keys, so you can say create access key. And here is a list of use cases here that you can select. Okay, so I'm just going to just say other, just for this demonstration. I'm going to say next and create access key. So this is now going to generate our access key and our secret access key. So I'm going to copy the following here. And the secret access key. And there we have it. What you can also do is download the .csv file. That is something optional that you can do as well. So let's say done and continue. And there we have it. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is to set up the AWS CLI. I will be sure to refer to this either in the description or as a pinned comment. And this is the documentation to set up the AWS CLI. And this is going to allow you to interact with AWS services via the CLI. So you can scroll down and we should be able to see the installation here. So here's the setup information, but you can click on install and update. And this is then going to give you the details on how you can set it all up. So this is the link that I would share with you. Okay, so I'm on Windows. I already have that set up. If you're on Mac OS, you can go ahead and set that up according on Mac OS, or if you're on Linux, you just want to install it. Now, once you've set that up, what you can do is you can go to the CMD, the command prompt if you're on Windows, or you can open up the terminal if you're on Mac OS. So I'm going to search for CMD since I'm on Windows. And I'm just going to adjust this terminal. And as soon as you have set up your CLI here, so as soon as you set it up, what you would usually do is go to your terminal and say AWS version. And that's just going to be an indication that you have installed the CLI correctly on your machine. So this is what you will get usually. Right, just clear that up. Okay, so what you want to do now is configure your access key accordingly. So you can say AWS configure. Okay, and then you want to go ahead and copy your access key and paste it in. Press enter, and then your secret access key, and copy that and press enter. And then the region name you can set. I've already had it set as US-East-2. That's the default. And you can just leave the output format as it is. Okay, so that's how you can configure the CLI accordingly. So now we want to communicate with a service on AWS to actually see how the CLI works. So what we can do is we can navigate to AWS, and I'm going to search for S3. I'm going to right click and I'm going to open that in a new tab. Okay, Right, so the region here that I'm using is US East 2, and this is where I want my bucket to be created. Of course, you can decide the region that you want to set. And what we can do now is in our command prompt, since we have the CLI installed, I'm going to show you how you can interact with the CLI to create an S3 bucket. So you can say AWS S3 and then MB, which stands for make bucket. And then you need to add in the necessary prefix here, which is going to be S3 : // and then you want to give your bucket a name here. So it needs to be unique. So try to think of something that no one would ever have. So I'm going to say here my-unique bucket pkt-eden. So that's going to be my bucket name, this whole part here. Then I need to set the region that I want it to be created in. So you'll add in the -- flag here for region. And here I'm going to say US-ES-2. Okay, and that is something that you can decide here, but if you click here on the region list here, you can just decide what is the correct syntax you want to use for where you want that bucket to be created. Okay, you can head on back and press enter, and then you're going to see some output here in your terminal or your CMD that says make_bucket. That means that bucket's being created, and that's going to be your bucket name, which you specified according to the prefix here. So now if you were to just refresh S3, or you can just type in S3 here again and click on it, it should directly take you to your list of buckets. And that's how you can create a very simple general purpose bucket via the AWS CLI. You can see the creation date, the region, the name of your bucket, and so on. Okay. Now if you want to delete it, assuming you don't have anything in this bucket, you can just select it and say delete. Copy the name. Delete it, and there you go. Now, if you want to also delete your security credentials, you can see here under security credentials for our user, we can scroll down and say deactivate. And then we can select it again and say delete. And you just want to copy that name here of that ID and say delete. Okay, there you go. All right, perfect. So that is how you can go ahead and utilize the AWS CLI. So as you saw, we created our necessary credentials, our access keys, and then of course we set up the AWS CLI here, and we communicated with AWS via the CLI in order to create an S3 bucket as a demonstration. Right guys, so that is how the CLI works in a nutshell.